The air in Studio 14 always smells like ambition and regret. Tonight, it was overlaid with the metallic scent of ozone, expensive champagne, and the nervous energy of people who knew they were finally made. This was the wrap party for Apex Predator, the blockbuster expected to dominate the summer. The room was a kaleidoscope of blinding flashbulbs, slick designer suits, and the low, insistent thrum of 100 conversations, desperately trying to sound more important than they were. But amidst the neon pulse of New Hollywood, one presence anchored the room with the gravity of granite: Sylvester Stallone. He wasn't meant to be the star of this new generation's film, but a mentor, a legacy cameo. Yet his silence was louder than the frantic chatter of the young cast. He stood near a discreet, darkened corner, observing. The scars of 50 years in the arena were etched into his face, mapping a history that few in this room could even begin to comprehend. He was the last man standing from an era when you fought the system with sweat, not algorithms. And nobody expected that simple, elegant Hollywood moment, the tradition of meeting and greeting, would become the stage for a lesson in humility so stark, so immediate, that the echoes of that night would define the career of one young actor forever. The young man in question was Jackson Cole, mid-20s, sculpted, impeccably dressed in a suit that cost more than Stallone's first 7 films combined. Jackson was the new face of action, a social media phenom whose fame had skyrocketed based on market research and perfect jawlines, not decades spent perfecting a craft. He walked through the crowd, a vortex of self-importance, surrounded by handlers who shielded him like royalty. His success was brittle, fast, and loud. He spotted Stallone, finally. It wasn't a respectful approach. It was a conquest. Jackson adjusted his cufflinks, flashing a practiced plastic smile intended for the cameras. Jackson's voice was too loud for the intimacy of the moment, cutting across the low hum of the party. It was the sound of synthetic confidence. "Mr. Stallone, the legend," Jackson declared, extending a hand, but not in genuine greeting. It was an offering of performative acknowledgement, meant to be seen. Stallone, who had been speaking quietly to the film's veteran lighting director, turned slowly. His eyes, heavy-lidded and perceptive, took in the entirety of Jackson Cole in a single, unhurried sweep. Stallone extended his own hand, a massive, worn instrument, the hand that had punched air for 5 decades, built monuments from dust, and typed the script of Rocky on a used typewriter. Jackson Cole saw the hand coming, and then, in a move dripping with calculated disrespect, he retracted his own at the last second. He turned the handshake into a high-five gesture, missing Stallone's palm entirely, then immediately switched to a shoulder tap. He followed the move with a burst of forced laughter. "Ah, the old-school handshake. You know, Sly, they taught us in media training that the traditional grip is actually unilateral. Too much old energy. We're pushing for fluid, modern connections now. Keeping it digital, keeping it fresh." Jackson punctuated the insult by pulling out his phone and pretending to film a short, goofy clip for his feed, still laughing too loud. The effect was instantaneous. The laughter died around them. The sound of glasses clinking and music seemed to dissipate, replaced by a hollow, profound silence. Stallone's hand hung in the air for a moment. It wasn't shaking. It was absolutely still. He didn't blink. He didn't withdraw the hand immediately. He simply allowed the refusal, the public, casual humiliation, to hang there like bad air. He looked at Jackson, not with anger, but with an expression so devastatingly simple it was worse than any shout. It was the look of a man who realized he was standing next to a child playing with a loaded gun. The lighting director subtly edged away, his face pale. The young publicists suddenly found their shoes incredibly interesting. "Digital connections," Stallone finally said. His voice was deep, rough, like gravel rolling down a steep hill. He didn't raise the volume above a murmur, forcing Jackson to lean slightly forward, trapping him in the encounter. "That's interesting," Stallone continued. He slowly, deliberately, lowered his hand. Jackson tried to regain control, sensing the shift in the room's temperature. He clapped Stallone lightly on the shoulder again, his confidence wobbling slightly. "It's just different now, Sly. Respect, sure, but we don't worship the past. You guys had your time. We're building the future now. Faster, cleaner, less blood and sweat, you know? Less of the struggle." He emphasized the word struggle, turning it into an archaic failing. Stallone remained motionless, his eyes fixed on the young actor. The silence stretched, becoming agonizing. It was the silence of a collapsing structure. Then, Stallone took 2 slow steps back, giving himself room to breathe, or perhaps room for his observer status. "Faster, cleaner," Stallone echoed, the words heavy and slow. "I understand." This was the moment Jackson thought he had won. He puffed out his chest, ready to turn the whole awkwardness into a funny story for his followers about the old dinosaur who didn't get modern media etiquette. But Stallone wasn't looking at him anymore. Stallone's gaze had moved past Jackson, past the publicists, past the glistening trays of canapes. His eyes settled on a man standing quietly by the loading dock door, barely noticeable in the shadows. This man was not in a suit. He wore faded jeans, a well-worn leather jacket, and a baseball cap pulled low. He had deep lines etched around his eyes, not from smiling, but from fatigue and intense concentration under hot lights. This was Mac, the head rigger and second unit grip. Mac was trying to hide the fact that he was balancing his weight unevenly on his cane. Mac had broken his ankle 2 weeks prior during a late-night set demolition, insisting on finishing the day before heading to the ER. Stallone, ignoring Jackson entirely, started walking toward Mac. Every step was deliberate, measured, closing the distance between the legend and the forgotten worker. Jackson, infuriated by the sudden shift of focus, muttered loud enough for his handlers to hear. "Seriously? He's going to talk to a grip right now?" Classic drama. But the rest of the room, held captive by Stallone's focused walk, watched. When Stallone reached Mac, the grip's eyes widened slightly in surprise, then narrowed in immediate, deep respect. Mac tried to straighten up, wincing slightly. Stallone didn't offer a handshake. He didn't need to. He simply placed his hand, the same hand Jackson had rejected moments before, gently on Mac's shoulder. It wasn't a patronizing touch. It was the contact of 2 men who understood gravity, friction, and the unforgiving nature of concrete. Stallone spoke, his voice dropping even lower, meant only for Mac, yet the entire room strained to hear. "Mac, I heard about the ankle. I saw you hobbling on the catwalk yesterday, taping your boot." Mac nodded, flushing slightly, embarrassed to be noticed. "Had to finish the rigging. Mr. S. didn't want the boys waiting." Stallone nodded, a long, heavy confirmation. He reached into the inner pocket of his blazer. He didn't pull out a generic check or cash. He pulled out a small, worn, leather-bound notebook. It was the kind that had seen the inside of trailers, damp studios, and long nights under starless skies. Stallone handed the notebook to Mac. "This is the first draft of the training sequences I wrote for Rocky Fears," Stallone said, his voice quiet but incredibly distinct. "It's nonsense, really. But it has my notes about the importance of footing, of balance." He paused, looking Mac straight in the eye. "You understand balance, Mac. Not the fancy kind. The kind that keeps 500 pounds of steel from dropping on the lead actor's head. The kind that means someone gets to go home to their family." He tightened his grip on Mac's shoulder. "You kept us safe. You paid the dues for all of us. You paid the real price." Then Stallone delivered the devastating blow, the one that truly turned the stomach of Jackson Cole and silenced the entire watching room. Stallone pulled out a custom-made pen, one Jackson had seen earlier, a heavy silver pen that was a known prop on set, used to sign contracts. Stallone took the notebook back for a moment, wrote something quickly on the title page, then handed it back to Mac, along with the expensive silver pen. "Don't sell the notebook," Stallone instructed, his voice firm. "Use the pen to write the names of the people who matter, the people who stand on the floor, not the stage." He leaned in one last time, an intimacy that was reserved for the true craftsman. "There's a difference between a legacy you buy, Mac, and a foundation you build. And this house, it's built on your bone and your muscle." He stepped back. He gave Mac a tiny, reverent nod, a complete acknowledgement of equality and sacrifice. He then turned, his gaze finally sweeping back over the stunned, silent crowd, passing right over Jackson Cole as if the young actor was a piece of cheap furniture. It was Stallone's punchline, delivered not through words, but through the overwhelming weight of character and action. Jackson Cole, standing yards away, realized 2 terrible truths in that instant. First, the gesture to Mac wasn't charity. It was respect for the craft he himself disdained. The notebook was worth more than any Rolex. The gesture was 1,000 times more viral than any high five Jackson could invent. Second, Stallone had never raised his voice. He hadn't fought Jackson's noise with his own. He had simply used Mac as the mirror, reflecting Jackson's superficiality back onto him with brutal clarity. Stallone had spoken about the floor, and in doing so, he had knocked Jackson straight onto it. The young actor's meticulously crafted public persona shattered. He suddenly looked small, glossy, and terrified. The laughter that had defined his attack was gone, replaced by a deep, hot flush of shame that spread visibly up his neck. He hadn't refused to shake Sylvester Stallone's hand. He had refused to shake the hand of 50 years of grueling, authentic work. And Stallone had responded by demonstrating what true strength, the quiet, enduring kind, looked like. The party didn't immediately restart. People watched Mac clutch the notebook and the pen, his eyes shiny with an emotion far deeper than gratitude. They watched Stallone walk calmly to the exit, his work done, and they watched Jackson Cole stand there, paralyzed, suddenly feeling the terrifying emptiness of his own manufactured fame. The silence eventually broke, but the energy had shifted completely. Within 20 minutes, the incident had left the building. Someone had recorded the entire interaction, focusing tightly on Stallone's profile and the devastated look on Jackson's face when the legend walked away. The clip, captioned, "Young Hollywood learns what dues mean," hit the major gossip sites by morning. Headlines screamed the dichotomy: the quiet killer, Stallone's silent takedown of entitlement; the grip who got the legacy, actor humiliated by Stallone's act of true respect. On Twitter, the clip was viewed millions of times in hours. Stallone was hailed as the embodiment of genuine class, a reminder that fame is fleeting, but character endures. Jackson became the face of entitled, dismissive youth, a cautionary tale burned into the history of the film's production. His previously celebrated fluid modern connection line was instantly memed, used as the punchline for every perceived arrogance in the industry. Sponsors hesitated. Projects put him on hold. The internet had rendered its judgment swiftly and brutally. The man who dismisses the foundation cannot stand on the roof. The noise of his ambition was drowned out by the thunderous consensus supporting Stallone's quiet truth. The lesson was delivered not on a script page but on a film set, in front of the people who knew the true meaning of the work. It was a lesson in weight, not the weight of fame or fortune, but the immovable, gravitational weight of experience, integrity, and the understanding that the stage rests entirely on the shoulders of the men and women on the floor. Character is not about how you treat those above you. It is entirely about how you honor those who support you, those whose sweat and sacrifice allow you to shine. Sylvester Stallone didn't use his power to crush arrogance. He used his presence to illuminate true value. He didn't engage in the fight. He simply showed the young actor the real battlefield. The world needs more people like this. Share if you agree.